Hi, I'm Karen. We're here at Montevilla Sewing Center, and today we're talking about the Pfaff Quilt Expression 720. In this video, I'm going to show you the accessories that come with this machine. So to start out with, we have the power cord, obviously, and we also have the foot control. Now, the foot control is not connected to the machine right now, and you can use your start-stop button with or without the foot control connected. The nice thing about the foot control is nice and wide, so that's easy to find on the floor just with your foot, and it has the power cord storage in the back here. When you take your power cord out, there's a little groove right here on the side that you can put your power cord right into like that. Okay, set that off to the side. Then we also have a nice hard cover, and that fits over the top of the machine, and the handle goes through the top of that. So it fits kind of like a cape on the shoulders of the machine. Then we also have a knee lifter. Now this here plugs in right here in front on your 720, and the purpose of that is when you push this with your knee to the right, it lifts up your presser foot. So it's a nice hands-off feature right here. Okay, and then we have the user's guide. Now the user's guide is really helpful in explaining lots of different features and things that we have on this machine. Of course, I have videos too, so between the two of us, you'll get some great learning going on here. Then we have our accessories. Now over here is the stylus, and this is what you would use to touch the various features on your machine. So the stylus is better than using your fingertip because the stylus is more precise, and it's a plastic stylus, so make sure you use only the plastic one, nothing metal, and preferably not your fingers because you don't want to get fingerprints on your screen. Then we have the quilting bar, or the guide for making parallel lines of stitches. Now this is really nice for if you're making like a crosshatch pattern on your quilt and you want to keep an even distance between your lines of stitching, you can use this. Also for decorative stitches, you can make parallel lines of decorative stitches. The way this fits on is right back here on the foot holder. You put it in that hole behind the presser bar, then you tighten the little screw down that's right above that hole, and that keeps it in place. We'll take that out, retighten the screw there. Then we have our free motion quilting foot. Now this is what we'd put on the machine. You set it up for free motion quilting, and you can do free motion quilting. Here's an example of some of my free motion quilting. The purpose of it, of course, is to attach the back, batting, and top of your quilt using stitching. Okay, and then we have the MultiPurpose Tool. I love this tool because this is great for going over those thick jean seams when you're trying to make sure that you don't get like you have the flat fill seam and you're trying to go over that and the foot tends to kind of tip up a little bit. What you do is put that behind the foot, and that helps keep the foot straight as you're going across your seam. So it's really handy for that. It's got a thinner area and a thicker area. Another thing I really like about the MultiPurpose Tool is that you have a needle inserter right there. So it gives you like a handle for your needle when you're changing your needle in your machine. Okay, and then we have the seam ripper and brush. They come together, and the handle, the cover goes right on the handle like this, and you can hang on to it really well that way. And then, of course, the brush is for cleaning your machine. This is good for opening the buttonholes or for unpicking a seam. Then we have this little net here. Now the purpose of this net is if you're using decorative thread that tends to want to maybe unspool and fall off the spool, this is a way that you can kind of keep that thread corralled and keep it on the spool while you're sewing. Now, I folded it in half because this is a shorter spool, but it's long enough so that you can have these longer, larger decorative spools. So you'd have your thread coming out the top, and that keeps it nice and neat. Then we have spool caps. Now this is for the various different sizes of thread spools that you have. Sometimes you have those really big Gutermann spools. This is great for that. And then the medium-sized spools, good for This size, you want to fit the size of spool cap to your spool. Now on the machine, we have a smaller spool. This is our Mettler, and we have the smaller spool cap right there. So you want to fit them so that way the thread flows off the spool nice and neatly. Now over here, you have an upright spool pin. So what this is for is you take one of your large spool caps, and that's the stand for your spool. But this spool would continue to spin after you stop sewing. That's what you have the felt for, because it acts like a brake to stop your spool from continuing to spin once you are done sewing. So let's take that off of there, like that. And then we have a screwdriver. Now this is going to be for taking your needle out, for prying up the needle plate, for anything else that you need a screwdriver for. It's got these nice wings here to give you some good torque on that. Then you've got a set of needles. Now the set of needles includes some universal needles, a wing needle for a specialty type of sewing, stretch needles for sewing stretch fabrics, jeans needles, that's pretty obvious, but it's also good for sewing things like canvas, and an embroidery needle. Now that is going to be for your shiny rayon thread that tends to get shredded with regular needles. The embroidery needle has a special eye in it that protects your thread. Great for doing decorative stitches. Then we have the straight stitch needle plate. Now I really like this for when I'm sewing delicate fabrics that tend to get pushed down inside the needle plate of your zigzag needle plate. This will help keep that from happening. And there's a setting on your machine when you're using this to make sure that you don't do any zigzag or wider stitches. Then we've got the feet themselves. Now one of your feet comes with your machine. That's your regular straight stitch foot, the 0A foot. Zigzag, straight stitching, that's the foot you'd use. This foot here looks a lot like it, the 1A foot, but the difference is this has a channel at the back, and that's good for sewing your decorative stitches where you need a little more space there because there's a lot of thread that you've sewn into the fabric. It helps it flow right through. The 2A foot is similar to that in that it has a channel on the bottom part, but it has no place for the IDT. So this foot would be good for your satin stitches or your zigzag where you've got a zigzag stitch very close together. Also, it's good for if you're using that silky type thread, that rayon thread, because you don't want to use your IDT on that. It would get some abrasion on those stitches. So this keeps you from using that because you'd need to disengage your IDT before putting that on. This is your blind hem foot. Now blind hem looks like this. You can hardly see it at all on the front and on the back. This is what it looks like. So to form the blind hem, you'd basically do it this way, and the book is going to tell you how to do that. That's blind hem. This is also a really good foot to use when you're overcasting the edge of your fabric. Now for thin fabrics like this, the edge tends to get scrunched up if you do a regular zigzag, but with this foot here, it puts enough slack in the top thread so that your edge stays nice and flat. So it's good for this kind of fabric. This guide, red guide, can be moved side to side depending on whether you're doing overcasting or you're doing blind hem. Nice versatile foot. This is your zipper foot. Now the zipper foot has two places for the IDT because it can be put on either side of the foot holder. And you can move your needle to the side and get it really close there. Nice thing about this, it's not only good for zippers, but it's also good for putting in piping because you can sew right next to that thin piping. This is your quilt piecing foot. Now if you're quilt piecing, this is an example of it here. You want to make sure you have a nice even quarter-inch seam allowances on all of your piecing seams. If you run the edge of your fabric right along the edge of the foot, it will give you an exact 1/4 of an inch. So really helpful to have that. And then on the inside here, you can actually run the edge of your fabric against this and have an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. This is a manual buttonhole foot. I like it because you can make horizontal buttonholes on the side of a shirt and put the edge of your shirt right there, and it'll make an even distance from the edge like that. This is your automatic buttonhole foot. Now the way this works is you would choose one of your buttonholes and you'd measure over here on the lid how big your button is, what the diameter of it is, and then you'd enter that in your machine. It would make the right size of buttonhole. This actually plugs into your machine underneath here. Okay. So that's your basic accessories for this machine. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, give us a thumbs up. And if you have comments or questions, you can leave those in the area down below. We have lots of other videos here on our Montevilla YouTube channel, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Bye.